Whenever you choose a database that we purchase from Ovid, Ovid is the name of the vendor, you're presented with this intermediary page. These are all the databases that we buy from Ovid. They divide Medline into several different sections. It's very big, and so if you wanted to search in just the most current from 1996 forward, you could choose the first one here. If you want to search in the entire database, you choose the second one. And then the third one has non-indexed citations, and they're the newest content. They haven't yet been assigned subject headings, so you will probably always want to go in and do a quick keyword search. You can't subject search in the non-indexed citations, but you can do a quick keyword search on your topic and see if anything's been published recently. This is also where you would come in to get access to PsycInfo. You only want to choose one of these databases at a time because they use different sets of subject headings. And so if you choose more than one, say you chose PsycInfo and Medline, you would be disabling subject searching. And we're going to focus on subject searching, so we want to try and use that to our benefit. So I'm going to go ahead and choose the middle one, the full database, 1946 forward. And I'm choosing that because the topic that we'll be looking at, I'm going to go to my question now, is in women age 40 to 60, does regular therapeutic exercise compared to the use of calcium supplements influence bone density? So I think this is a topic that there's probably been research done on before 1996. There's no really new idea here. It's possible that there's currently research being done on it. I'm just not really quite sure how old the research is, so I want to look at the whole database. I'm going to go back here now. Oh, and I'm sorry, I forgot I was going to show you the citation matcher first. Let's go back to that slide. So here's the information from the citation. So let's say we've come across an article and we want to try and see if we can find it and get a hold of the full text. So you would just make note, the easiest way to do it is to just make note of the numerical information. So we'll actually use the year 2003, the volume, the issue, and the starting page number to see if we can find this. So when you go into the database, there's this option right here, which is Find Citation. It defaults to the advanced search, but we're going to start by moving it over here to Find Citation. And then I'm just going to put in those components. So I'm going to put in the year 2003, the volume was 327, the issue was 7429, and the starting page number was 1459. Now there may be more than one article that has all of this information associated with it. In this case there's just the one. So if we scroll down here, we see the one article, Parachute Used to Prevent Death and Major Trauma Related to Gravitational Challenge, a systematic review of randomized controlled trials. This is those controlled trials are ones that you probably wouldn't want to be in the control group of. This is a joke article or a satire. The British Medical Journal publishes a satire issue once a year, and they have oftentimes very funny articles published, but written in a very scientific way. So they're good examples, and sometimes just fun to look at. So let's go back up here to the main search interface, and now I'm going to delete this since we've already found it, and I just want to take it out of our search history. And then I'm going to take us back to the advanced search. And now we'll divide our question into its PICO components and search for each one individually, trying to find a subject heading that represents each concept. So I'm actually going to start with bone density, which is the outcome that we're looking at. And just keep in mind that we do things like population limits at the end. So we'll add in our age group and try and pull in women as our population at the end of our search. So we do have a heading here called bone density. What we're being presented with here is a list of subject headings related to our keyword search. So I'm going to go ahead and select bone density. Before I go on, I'm going to click on the term. It's telling us up here, click on a subject heading to view more general and specific terms within the tree. So what this does is it shows you how the subject headings are organized, and it will highlight your term in blue. So we see here that bone density falls under musculoskeletal physiological phenomena. It may be that we would want to research that term instead. Or it could be that there are narrower terms that fall underneath our term that we want to include. So for example, here under muscle strength, there's a little plus sign that indicates that there are narrower terms falling underneath there. Whenever you click on the explode box, which is the first column here, next to a term, it brings in all of the narrower terms that fall underneath it, and I'll demonstrate that in one of our next searches. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave my selection at bone density. I'm not going to click explode because there are no narrower terms underneath bone density. Our other option here is to choose focus. Focus is a way to narrow your search. When they assign subject headings to the different articles, they assign major and minor subject headings. And if you click focus here next to your subject heading, you'll only retrieve citations that have been given this heading as a main concept. Since we'll be searching on lots of different ideas and combining them, I want to keep my search as broad as possible, so I don't want to focus it yet. Focus is useful when you're only searching on one term. That's one good time to use it. I'm going to click on continue, and then we're presented with a page of subheadings. The subheadings will vary for each subject heading, so it's telling us these are the subheadings for bone density. We could choose one if there was one that was specific to our question, or we can just go ahead and say continue, and that's just the same as selecting the include all. So when we say continue, then we're given our first search in our search history, number 1 here. We have 38,916 results. And now we want to go and add our second concept. So our second concept was calcium supplements. I'm just going to type that in the keyword search. And then we get a few different subject headings to think about here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the little scope note, which is identified by the info button here next to each, and try and determine which one I think might be best for us to use. So the first one is calcium. If I click on the scope note, it tells me what it means when it is using the subject heading calcium in the database. So it's the basic element. I think that might be useful in our research. Let's go back and look at the others. The next is calcium dietary. If we look at the scope note for that, it's talking about calcium compounds used as food supplements or in food. That seems like it could be useful as well. And then we have dietary supplements. Osteoporosis is a different idea, but that's something that we might want to consider for our search later, so we may come back to that. I'm going to go ahead and choose calcium dietary. I'm going to go ahead and click on it to see if there are narrower terms underneath it. There are not. Calcium compounds is the broader heading. In this case, I really do just want the dietary calcium, so again, I'm going to leave it just as it is and click on continue. I'm going to go ahead and include all subheadings again by clicking on continue. And then I'm actually going to go back and do this search again, and it remembers that we already did this search, so we can just click down there and bring it up. And I'm going to, this time, choose the basic element calcium, and I'm going to choose dietary supplements. And I'm going to change the or here to an and. So this will build a set that's about dietary supplements and calcium as another way to get at this idea. When I click continue, since I've chosen more than one, it doesn't give me subheading options. Now I want to create one big set that's all about my calcium supplement idea. So I'm going to click both of the boxes next to the calcium searches, and I'm going to combine them with an or. And let's see, so there are 8,690 in one set and 1,100 in the other. So if there was no overlap between these, we'd have a little around 10,000 results. So we end up with 9,710. So there was some unique content there, and we've got that all pulled together. So this will now be our calcium search. 2 or 3 together will be considered our calcium search. Now we can add our comparator intervention idea, which is exercise. And if we click on exercise in the list and take a look at it, Underneath the broad heading exercise are different types of exercises. So we're interested really in any type of exercise that might have an effect on bone density. So I'm going to choose the explode column here, and this will give me the broad term exercise as well as all of these headings. And then in the case of running, there are narrower terms about running underneath there. We'll be bringing those in as well. I'll click on continue, and I'm going to include all subheadings and click continue one more time. So you can see now that we're seeing searches 2, 3, 4, and 5, but search number 1 has disappeared. And that's because the interface is just trying to conserve space for you. If you want to go back and see everything in your search history, click on the red arrow here and that will expand. And now we see bone density again. So I'd like to retrieve results that are about bone density, about calcium supplements, and maybe about our comparator exercise too. I'd like to start by seeing if there's anything that's about all three ideas. So I've selected the 3 searches that represent those 3 different concepts, and I'm going to combine them with an AND. And that gives me a set of 246. Now we can start thinking a little bit more about our population. And the way that you get to the screen with population limits is to click here on additional limits at the bottom of this blue box underneath the publication year selector. When I click on additional limits, it opens up a whole new page. And this is where we find our age groups. So we're looking at ages 40 to 60. So we can go through here and choose 45 to 65 years is probably the closest. We could also choose adult 19 to 44 and middle age 40 to 64. You hold down the control key to choose more than one option here. And that way we'll be capturing that first 4 years of 40 as well as 45 to 64. Not ideal, but that's the only way we can get at this one. So we've done our age group here, and now we can also choose female from the list up here at the top. Male is over here. Choosing a male or a female limiter oftentimes doesn't work exactly the way you think that it will, because citations could be on studies that were done on both male and female populations, and they may have been assigned both of these limiters. So by limiting to female doesn't mean that you're excluding male or vice versa, but it's a way to start. And typically this topic is going to be done. We know that it's often something that's considered heavily in a female population, so we're in some way structuring the search, and that's implicit. So we have our age group and our female limiter selected, and now we scroll up to the top. It's always defaults to the last search in your search history. So we're limiting that search. We're going to click on limit a search. And then you'll see in your search history that now we've added these limiters and we have a much smaller set. Now we can go in and limit by some publication types to pull out the resources that are considered to be evidence-based. So we go back to additional limits. And I like to start by limiting to the publication types that are at the top of the pyramid. So over here under publication types, I'm going to choose the meta-analysis. And I'm going to hold down the control key and also choose the systematic review. And then scroll back up. I'm limiting my last search here, search number 7. Click on limit a search. And now I have a set of 2. So I probably want to look at more than 2 articles. So I think I'll go then and choose another publication type. So this time I'm going to go in and look for clinical trials. So I'll go to additional limits again and scroll down to publication types. And if I scroll down here, there's a heading called Clinical Trial All. This will bring in all types of clinical trials, including the randomized controlled trial. And now I want to go back up and change this to my search number 7. I don't want to limit search number 8, which only has 2 results. I want to go back to my base search with my age and sex group indicators already applied to that search and limit it instead. And that gives me a set of 28. So now most likely I would blend those together with an OR. and I get a set of 30. So my meta-analysis and systematic reviews were not contained within my clinical trial set. So now I have a set of 30 to look through. And now I want to show you how to take an article into one of the other databases and work with it there. So I'm going to copy the title of this article, and I'm also going to copy the last name of the first author here, Court. So I'm just highlighting that, and then I'm going to right click and copy that information and open another tab here. Go to the library homepage, and this time I'm going to choose the Scopus database. I told you earlier about Scopus. It's a database that shows you who has cited an article since it was written. You can also search in Scopus, and I'll show you that too. I'm going to just paste the name of the article in here, and then I'm going to cut out the author's name and add a field and change it to author and paste that in there, and then I'll take out this period so that doesn't confuse it. And now I'm going to search for this article and see if I can find it in Scopus. So it finds the article for me, and it's telling me here at the end of the line that this article has been cited 156 times. So the article's from 1997. It's pretty old, but 156 is a lot of citations, so it's probably a great article to be looking at maybe for background information on this idea. And then if you wanted to see all of the articles that had cited it, you just click on the number, and that generates a list of those citations. And then if you want to follow that train of thought and look at highly cited articles, you can click on Cited By, and it will sort them by the number of times they've been cited. So this is one way to find other articles that cite your article. In the same way that when you find an article that you really like, you'll go to the references and look at the articles that they cited when they were writing it. This is a way to go forward in the publication chain and see the more current material. Now if you just wanted to search in Scopus, you could go to the Scopus interface, the home page, and we could just do a search here. I'm going to delete this field. And in this box, I'm going to delete our content. I'm going to search for bone density, and I'll put it in quotes so it'll hold those two words together in a phrase. I'll add a couple more fields here, and I'll do calcium, and I'll just do calcium, not supplements, and then exercise. So you can see this is a much more basic way to search. If I click then on the little magnifying glass, it runs a search for me, and I have a big set of almost 1,800 documents. If you want to limit your search, you can do that using these facets on the left-hand side. So if we open the subject area, we can go in and say we only want to see research that's from medicine and nursing. If we look at source type, we can say we only want publications that are from journals, that sort of thing. Document type will get you a little more detailed into the different types of studies. It's not as specific as the other databases though in terms of study types. So we could say limit to, and that would bring this search down to a smaller number. And then you could do the same thing here. You could click on Cited By and sort them so that you have the most highly cited articles at the top of your search. So that's searching in Scopus. It's pretty straightforward. Another thing that you might want to do is take your article and put it into PubMed. I talked earlier about the related citations feature in PubMed. So I'll open another tab here, go to the library homepage, and click on PubMed, and again we're going into PubMed through the library homepage so that we're linking in to all of the library's full text subscriptions to journals. I'm going to paste that information in here. I'll take that period out again and just search on that. And when it finds the article, you'll see over here on the right hand side that you have the option to see related citations. There are two sections. You can just review articles, which are lit reviews and systematic reviews, or you can look at everything if you click on See All. And this will generate a list of articles that are about the same ideas. And again, they don't tell us how they do this, kind of the way Google Scholar doesn't. We don't know how they're building this search, but they have really good success at finding things that are similar. So once you find something really good, maybe using an Ovid search, you could pull it into PubMed in this way and look at the related citations. Okay, so I'm going to go back up here to our search and show you quickly how you would save your search history. So if you wanted to save this search, you would click on Save Search History here at the bottom, and then you would create a new personal account. So this is where you create a username and password of your own. It's not related to any of your OHSU login information, so it's one that you make up yourself. And the only thing that you really need to remember about the password in the Ovid databases is that it can't have any special characters. It can only be numbers and letters. So I often recommend that people create their Ovid password first so that they can use that same password if they create an account in CINAHL and then in RefWorks. Okay, so I'm going to go back to our slides just for a minute and look at our question to do a search in CINAHL real quickly. Our CINAHL search is in hospitalized acute care patients will hourly rounding as opposed to responding to call lights reduce the number of falls over the course of 3 months. Now I'm going to go back to the web here and open a new tab, and I'm actually going to go back and log out of Ovid. We have a limited number of seats. It's a high number, but it's a good idea to log out when you're done. And from the Nursing Live Guide, we can go to CINAHL. It's right here in the middle of the home page also. So the CINAHL interface is set up to work in a similar way to the Ovid interface in that it's suggesting subject terms. So the first thing we'll do is look for subject headings and rather than citations to start with. So to start off our search, we'll look first at patient rounding. So I know that our population is defined by the acute care hospitalized patient, but rounding in a way implies hospitalization or it implies a hospital environment, so I'm going to start there. And it suggests to me the term patient rounds, so I'll make this a little bit bigger. You can see here that we have the same sort of options. We can click the link term to see the tree view. One thing about CINAHL that I really like is that if there aren't any narrower terms available, there's no option to explode. See how the major concept box is 3D? Major concept is just like the focus feature in Ovid. There's nothing narrower underneath patient rounds, so it's not available. So we know that we can just choose patient rounds. That's really the idea that we're looking for. And it just tells you, it then opens up a column of subheadings, excuse me. So instead of a separate page of subheadings, you just get them in a related column right here. So from patient rounds, these are all the subheadings that are available. We could choose several if we wanted to, or again, the default is to include all. So I'm just going to go ahead and include all subheadings. And I'm going to click here on Search Database to actually run this search. So now in my search history I have search number 1 on patient rounds with about 1,200 results. So now I'm going to add our next concept, or actually I'm going to add a component to this one. We're really talking about hourly rounding. So what I would do is go through these results a little bit and see if the concept of hourly rounding is represented. So I've done that and I don't really see it there. So I want to bring the time piece into this. And so I'm going to just search on the word hour with an asterisk. So this will look for hour or hours or hourly, anything that has hour as its root. And I'm going to search now. I'm not really looking for a subject heading now. I want to search for this as a keyword. You always have the option at the end of your suggested subject headings to search for your term as a keyword. This will look for your word in the title and abstract of everything in the database. So I'm going to choose that and click on Search Database. And then I'm going to combine my hour search with my patient rounds with an and, search with and. And that should bring my set down to citations that are specifically, hopefully, about hourly rounding. So you can see here in the titles that hourly rounding starts showing up. Hourly rounds, hourly rounding. And we have a set of 78. Now let's bring in our next concept. Our comparative intervention was call lights. So let's see if there's a heading for call light. I don't see anything here that I want to use. I could search for call light as a keyword, but I'd like to go back and truncate light so that I'm looking for light or lights. So if I just go back and put the asterisk here, And then you can actually unclick Suggest Subject Terms, and that will automatically run a keyword search. So now I have my call light search here, and you may notice that the results in CINAHL are in reverse order from the Ovid interface. And if that bugs you, you can click on Search ID here, and it will flip them around. So that search number 1's at the top, and search number 4 is at the bottom, which is just the same as in the Ovid interface. So now we have our set of results, 59, that have call light somewhere in the title or in the abstract. And then I'm now going to search for the outcome that we're trying to prevent, which is falls. So if I search on falls, it brings me to the term accidental falls. Again, there's no narrower term underneath it to explode, so I'm just going to choose it. I'm going to include all subheadings again and click on Search Database. And now I have a set of citations that are about accidental falls. So I could do the same sort of thing. I may want to bring these all together into one search to see if there are any studies that compare rounds, call light response, and accidental falls. So I would choose my accidental falls, my call light search, and here's my hourly rounding search. And I want to search with and. And then I get a set of 4. So a set of 4 again may not be that big. One thing that you can do is look at the subject headings that are attached to an article when you find one that's really good and right on topic for you, and maybe try and incorporate some of the subject headings that they used in their search. That's one way to build your search out. The other thing I would do in this case is I would combine rounds with falls, just those two ideas on their own with an and then I would combine rounds with the call light search and run that search with those two things added anded together. And I would look at these two sets individually, and then you could draw conclusions on your own, hopefully, about how the different interventions work and compare. You can get to the additional limits in CINAHL in a similar way as to the Ovid interface. It's hidden a little bit. It's over here under Show, underneath the Date slider, and the link is called Show More. If you click on Show More, it brings you to a page of limits. Here you could choose sex characteristics, age groups in the same way, publication types here. There's also a limit called evidence-based practice. This limit is meant to tease out everything that's about evidence-based practice within your search. I kind of prefer to use the actual publication types myself and start by sorting them out and filtering them that way. But if you have a really big set, using the evidence-based practice limit might be one way to limit it down. I'm going to go ahead and close that window. And that's pretty much the end of our CINAHL search. I want to show you quickly how to get some citations now into RefWorks. So don't forget there's a handout on the Nursing Live Guide that tells you how to do this. I'm just going to quickly show you. I'm going to select a few citations here by clicking on the little folder icon. Once I've added a few, I scroll back up to my folder at the top. And now I'm in the folder view. I can select everything and click on Export to move it out into RefWorks. The default here is direct export to RefWorks. I would like to remove these from the folder after saving so that I don't end up exporting the same set of citations again. And then I click on Save. And this opens RefWorks. So RefWorks is a place where you would have to sign up for a new account if you don't have one already. I'm going to go ahead and log in. And I think I mistyped my password. And then when you log in, it opens up your RefWorks account, and then you get this pop-up window that lets you know when your citations have been imported. And the way that you access them is to go down here in the lower right-hand corner. I don't think this is a very intuitive place to go, so I always like to sort of really point out that it's down here. You want to click on View Last Imported Folder. RefWorks uses a folder system to organize things. Whenever you import, it brings your citations into the last imported folder, but that folder is temporary. So you need to create a named folder and move your citations into that folder. The easiest way to do that is to click on All in List and then roll over this little folder. If you had already created a folder, you could just click on it and move your citation into it. or you can click here on create new folder. And I'm going to put a 0 in front of this so that it will jump to the top of my list, and we'll just call it rounding and falls, and click on create. It moves our citations into our rounding and falls folder. It's still in last imported until we bring in another set of citations, and then they'll be kicked out. If you forget to move your citations into a named folder, they go into this folder over here called not in folder, so you can sort of dig them out of there. And then when you want to create a references list, you go into your folder. I'm clicking on organize and share folders, and now I'm going to click on my rounding and falls folder. I'm in my folder. I'm going to click on create bibliography. I want to make sure that I'm using the 6th edition of APA. You could change this to a Word document if you wanted to generate a Word document. I'm just going to leave it at HTML for right now. Click on create bibliography, and it'll generate your references list for you. It's important to know that RefWorks does make mistakes, so you need to verify that your citations are formatted properly. So it can cause errors. It's sort of a garbage in, garbage out situation. The tool that I talked about earlier that lets you format in-text citations is here under Tools. It's called Write and Cite. It's something that you download, and it's an add-in to Microsoft Word. Under Help, there are tutorials about Write and Cite as well as the rest of RefWorks. And then on the live guide, we have our own tutorials about RefWorks as well. So here in the live guide, one of the tutorials that you'll find is on RefWorks, and that covers Write and Cite also. I wanted to go back to the library homepage and show you one more thing before we finish up. And that's here under the different database options we have for looking at the databases that we subscribe to. There's a mobile section, and if you click on mobile, it will show you how to load or access the mobile version of any of our resources that have a mobile version available. So they vary by resource. They have different ways to load and access, and it can get kind of confusing, but if there are specific ones that you'd like to have on your mobile device, people really like Dynamed, people really like UpToDate. There are a few others that you might want to check out, and they're all listed here. So that was just from the home page. I clicked on the mobile tab here. And then I'm just going to leave you at the Ask a Librarian page. This is where the email form is, where you could submit a question, and we promise a 24-hour turnaround time Monday through Friday. Our chat service is here. The phone number to call if you need help is there as well. So I hope that you'll get in touch if you have questions, and I wish you good luck with your research.